in that same time period from 1997 till a year ago, went from 4,051 students down to 3,700 students, a loss of 351 students. And Orangeburg 5 went from 7,982 students down to 6,407 students. So county-wide, the number of students that we're educating in the public school system over this period of 10 or 12 years is a loss of over 3,000 students. Now, if you've got 3,000 students going to the same number of schools, you probably have some extra resources in terms of space than what you've had before, but not necessarily, because sometimes our students were educated in mobile units, and we have gone through construction changes in which we have taken older buildings and put them, mothballed them or not be using them, and we're using newer buildings. And quite frankly, some of our students are in relatively new structure. But there has been a change in student population in Orangeburg over this past period of time. If you look at statewide, what is what I'm going to call the district office expense, or the expense that's not necessarily in the classroom, but administrative expense, again, using statistics that are outdated by a year because I don't have the updated statistics. The average for the state of South Carolina as far as a percent is 5.6% of the budget is spent on district operations statewide. In our counties, in 5 is 8.66, in 3 it's 7.2, and in 4 it's 6.12. In other words, our district expenses are higher in every single one of our districts than they are on a statewide basis. Not that in-district expenses aren't necessary, they're very necessary. In fact, they're vital to the education of our children. But expenses that are not spent on district expense are then able to be put in the classroom. And there is a thought that if we streamline the administration of 3 school districts into one, the cost savings that should flow from that can be put into the classroom, where we can then get the quality teachers that we think we need to educate our children. Now, there are plenty of naysayers and detractors who say this isn't going to work, and we're too big. And look, that's why we have these debates. Let's talk about it. Greenville County, 1 school district. Charleston County, 1 school district. Smaller counties, Allendale County, 1 school district. Colleton County, 1 school district. There are many counties around this state who are functioning with 1 school district. What does that mean as a practical basis? I mean, I can give you an example after an example, but for instance, if the State Department says, how many students in Orangeburg are on the free and reduced lunch program? 3 different people have to go to 3 different computers and look in those computers and respond to the state office 3 different times, and then somebody has to add those up to come up with a countywide total. If they ask that same question to Colleton County, 1 person goes to 1 computer, looks it up, and sends it back. In counties that have 1 school district, you don't have duplication of the same position in all 3 districts. Now, you might have some subset of that. For instance, if we had 1 superintendent instead of the 3 wonderful ones that we have now, we may have 1 superintendent and then 2 assistants that we may not have now. But you wouldn't necessarily have, and I could use any number of examples, but 1 nutritionist or food service director who would plan the menu for all the schools across the county, as opposed to 3 different ones that are proposing the menus in 3 different school districts. We've got school buses that run in 3 different districts, and there's somebody in charge of the buses and the routes that they take, and those may be able to be consolidated. And I'll be the first to tell you, I am no expert on education, nor on the running of a school. So I can't tell you that all of these savings would be there, but I do know that each one of these 3 districts has to plan a separate budget. And they got separate finance people with which they've got to go through the process of planning that budget. If we had 1 consolidated district, countywide, we would have 1 budget for the county. Now, that gets to a fairness question in many ways, is that, as I asked you before, does anybody believe that the quality of a child's education should vary based on where that child was born or where that child has lived? And I don't believe anybody's going to agree to that. Neither should it matter in Orangeburg County where that child lives as to the quality of education that they get. And I would like to hope that the quality of education that we deliver in every school in this county is the same, but it is not. And could it be better? I would hope that it could be the best that it possibly could be. But the way that it's going to get better is more focused attention to what's going on in the classroom and less attention to what may be expenses that we could cut in terms of overhead. I'll give you some